Okay, we are on step number 12 in the booklet. Finishing sanding everything. I've got some tools here. I've got a 120 grit orbital sander, that's the blue one. Check and make sure that's the wrong one.
No.
We're going to use 120 and get the right one on there. 150, even that one has been worn pretty badly. It's got lots of gunk on it, so I'm going to change it also. And put a new pad on it. Then I've got 150 grit paper that has been folded into thirds. A 220 that is folded into thirds. And then a sanding block, and this has a 120 or a 150 grit paper on it. So why are we sanding in the first place? All of our project has markings on it from machines. So the top, I'm hoping you can see this, but there are marks from the planer coming across there, multiples. There's also streaks going this way.
Point out the streaks, those are easy to see. Yeah, look at that.
Coming down there.
Right there.
Right up here, I can see them too. Super obvious when it's coming across the grain here. That is not natural. That's all planer marks doing that to you. And on this lid, you should be able to feel what we call snipe. It's where it goes in the planer and it cuts it a little bit deeper, and then right about here, it comes up a little bit. We're not talking a lot, we're talking, I don't know, 5 or 10 thousandths is all. Not very much, but it's enough that it's noticeable, and when it's under lacquer, it's noticeable. The same thing happens on this end. Right about here, I feel a bump.
Yeah, you can see that.
And that has to come out with the sander. And look at this one now. When it goes through the wide belt sander, it leaves cross-grain scratches. So those little white scratches coming across the grain. That's because it went through the wide belt sander this direction. Now those scratches continue here with the grain, but they're not as obvious. But then as soon as we go across the grain, boom, they're there again. Those all have to come out. There's other issues that happen. That is a glue. And down in here, I've got some glue areas. That's where it's dark. Those have to come out. Especially on the feet, it's easy to miss them. Let me show you some more glue. Up in there, that's a glue spot. Now I'm going to highlight it with some spit, and now it shows up. And that's what happens when we put lacquer on it. Those show up. So you have to be able to see them and get rid of them. You start with the 120 grit paper. It's the most coarse of all of them. And this is where most of the work is in the 120 grit paper. I'll spend a half an hour sanding all of this with this first, before I ever move to these other tools. Okay, so here I've got another glue spot. You see it right there? I'm going to point it out. Right there.
Yeah.
That's got to come out of there, as well as all those sanding scratches and the glue up there. Now it's all cleaned off of there really well. Okay, so let me give you some technique as far as sanding. I am pressing really hard, and I'm even putting a little bit of pressure forward so that I sand with this part of the sander, right? It spins like this, and if I push it right in the middle, it doesn't sand as effectively as if I put it a little up pressure. Now I'm not talking like this. That will dig a hole in the wood. I'm staying flat. I'm just putting a little bit of pressure towards the top so that as it turns, it aggressively sands. And I will work this whole area. In fact, what I'll do is I'll put it on the edge of the table so that I can work this whole spot. Then I'll work here, come down and work that very methodically, and then this, and I'll just work my way across it. As I go, I look back here to see if I've missed anything, and if I do, I go back and get it, and then I continue on with my progress. Sometimes it's really hard to see and because the light's not great, especially like that, so I'll have to tilt it up and look at it and make sure everything looks nice. I'm looking for cross-grain scratching or glue or anything like that. Okay, I'm going to keep making progress. I'll do this, I'll just work my way down it. Then I'll come across here and I'll do this and this and this, and then I'll start working on this, and then I'll go to the other edges. This is for all of the flats, every flat spot. I'm not working any corners, none of that. None of this, none of that, none of this. It's all flat, only flat. Now I can do the top of this as long as I stay flat. I'm not rolling the corner, that comes later. Now I want to talk about the top especially. The lid of this thing is the thing that is seen the most, and you have to be this has to look gorgeous. So I'm going to start up here and work my way across, and then I'll drop it and work my way across, and then drop it, work my way across, all the way down, and be very, very thorough with the 120 grit. Now you can start to see already where the snipe is. You see the color change right there. That's because it's dipping right there. So I have to keep working it with the sandpaper to get rid of it. Takes a lot of work to get rid of that. You can see where it's all showing up. Right there across, right there across. All of this has to come out. So I'm going to work it very heavy with this 120. I'm pressing really hard on it. And then I'll come down and I'll just keep going. And if I didn't get it, I'll go back and get it. And I'll work my way down and be very thorough. The bottom side of this is up to you whether you do it, right? It's inside the box. You choose. If you don't want to, don't. If you do, do. Also do the edges. These edges can be done flat. You're not rolling, but you can do a flat here, and you can do a flat here also. After you finish with 120 grit, then it gets passed off by the teacher, by me. And I will come over and visually inspect everything and make sure it looks good. After I give you the okay, then you move to 150 grit. This is a finer sandpaper and makes it smoother. Its job is not to get rid of cross-grain scratches or glue, it's to make these scratches even finer to 150. And we have to go over everything again. But this time it's much easier. It's a much easier sand. It's a fourth of the time. If it took us 30 minutes to do the 120 grit, it only takes like 10 minutes to do the 150 grit. After 150 grit, then you move to 150 hand and 220 hand. This is for doing profiles. So, like this. If you have some burns from the cutter or other things that you want to get rid of, that's what you're doing with this 150 grit. When you go across the grain, since it tends to scratch more, we move up in grit. So now I'm working with 220. So 220 is okay to go across the grain. .150 is with the grain, 220 is across the grain. The same thing goes with these. And some people don't even do anything to these because they look pretty good already. But if you want to do the profiles, do it with 150 grit when you're going with the grain. And when it's folded like this, it gives you a nice pad so that you can, I really like it. And you use up that face and then you move to another face, and then when that's wore out, you move to the last face. When that's wore out, throw it away and get a new piece. So 150 with the grit. Then when you go across the grain here, move it up in grit to 220. This 220 is so fine that you don't see the sanding scratches under lacquer. All right, so that's across the grain. And then 150 grit with the grain. And 150 doesn't show up either under lacquer. Okay, once that's all done, then we move to the sanding block and we do the corners. These are sharp, especially after we've sanded them nice and smooth. They're sharp and you can cut yourself on them. So take your sanding block, bring it across it like that, and that's about all it takes. So what I want to show you is there's about a 1/16 of an inch chamfer. That's a 45-degree angle on that edge. That's all you're really wanting to produce. I will do every corner here, there, you know, the inside all the way around. I want to do this one for sure, that one, that one, that one, that one, that one, that one, that one. Everywhere that it's sharp, we got to knock the edge off. This edge is a little sharp. I like to take that one off too. And that one. The corners, where these three come together, right? So I've chamfered this one, and that one. And I'll even take another one and knock it off like that so that when someone hits their head on it, they don't bleed to death. Okay, after that's all done, now it's ready for the first coat of lacquer. And it goes on a cart. This one. Put your name on it. Down here. And it goes underneath the lid where the hardware is. Put it there. gets wheeled over to the finisher, where it's going to get the first coat of lacquer. So, first you do 120, all the flats. Then you get it checked off by the teacher. Then you move to 150, then to the profiles, 150 and 220. Finally, all the sharp corners with the sanding block.